Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've ever stared at your bank balance at the end of the month and wondered exactly where all your hard-earned cash just disappeared to, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're focusing on taking real, actionable control of your personal finances. And honestly, the best part? We are going to do it without the headache of massively complex spreadsheets or confusing financial jargon. We're going to break down some of the most popular budgeting frameworks out there to help you finally master your money. To give you a quick roadmap for This Explainer, here is what we'll be covering. First, the 50-30-20 blueprint. Second, defining needs versus wants. Third, the rule in action. Fourth, when the rule breaks. And finally, finding your perfect budget.
Okay, let's dive right into section 1, the 50-30-20 blueprint.
So let's get into this foundational framework because it brilliantly simplifies the entire concept of budgeting into 3 very easy, very manageable buckets. The 50-30-20 rule was actually popularized back in 2005 by Harvard law professor and current U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, along with her daughter Amelia Warren Taji. The absolute beauty of this rule is its sheer simplicity, especially for beginners. Here's how it works. You take your after-tax income, so the money that actually hits your bank account after all the deductions, and you slice it up like a pie. 50% goes to your essential needs. 30% is allocated for your discretionary wants. And that final 20%, that goes straight into savings and debt repayment. It's great because it gives you a clear target without forcing you to track every single penny you spend on a pack of gum.
Moving right along to section 2, defining needs versus wants.
Now here's where things can get just a little bit sticky for most of us. How do you actually categorize your spending? Well, needs are your absolute non-negotiables. Your rent, basic groceries, transport to get to work, and healthcare. Wants, on the other hand, are the things that improve your daily life, but let's be honest, you could technically survive without them. We're talking dining out, hobbies, and all those streaming subscriptions. But as the experts at Old Mutual point out, there is a whole lot of gray area here. Like, yes, you absolutely need food to survive. That is squarely a 50% need category. But do you truly need that organic, 7-grain, honey-scented, artisan truffle-infused bread? Or those really expensive chocolate chip cookies? Technically, those are wants. So the key to making this entire framework succeed is just being brutally honest with yourself about which side of the line your purchases actually fall on.
Now, what's really interesting about this next visual, which is a physical monthly budgeting sheet from Irish Life, is that when you ground this theory in reality, you start to realize just how many things are crammed into that needs bucket. Mortgages, home insurance, waste charges, electricity, these are fixed, unavoidable costs. Having some sort of visual aid like this, whether it's on paper or an app, is absolutely crucial. It physically forces you to write down your subscriptions and club fees under wants, and that keeps you entirely self-aware of exactly where your money is flowing every month.
Which brings us to section 3, the rule in action.
All right, so we know the buckets, and we know how to categorize our spending. Let's apply this math to a real-world example from Finery to see how it shakes out. Let's say your take-home pay is 2,500 euros a month. Following the rule, you multiply that by 50% for your needs, which gives you 1,250 euros. Boom, that covers your rent, your basic groceries, and utility bills. Next, 30% goes to your wants, so that's 750 euros for hitting up restaurants, grabbing some new shoes, or going to the movies. Finally, 20% goes to savings, which leaves you with 500 euros. This 500 euros is your powerhouse. It's what you use to build an emergency fund, invest, or aggressively pay off consumer debt. When you hear it laid out step by step like this, you can see why the 50-30-20 rule is just a fantastic, highly practical starting point if you're totally new to managing your money.
Let's shift gears to section 4, when the rule breaks. We really need to be realistic for a second, because sometimes rigid rules just do not survive contact with high inflation and skyrocketing rent. Take a look at this quote from a Reddit user who goes by Paycheck Wizard. They point out that when housing is incredibly expensive, basic needs alone can easily eat up 60 to 70% of your income before you even look at anything else. When that happens, seeing the 50-30-20 rule plastered everywhere can actually feel like a massive guilt trip rather than a helpful tool. And it's important we impartially acknowledge this economic reality. For a lot of earners today, especially if you're renting in a major city, keeping your fixed living costs under 50% is mathematically impossible without drastically overhauling your entire living situation.
Another user completely echoed this sentiment, stating that their needs are nearly 70% of their income, and that trying to follow the 50-30-20 rule religiously would just make them feel like a failure. So, what's the big takeaway here? Missing that 50% mark absolutely does not make you a financial failure. A budget is supposed to be an honest reflection of your actual life, not some sort of punishment.
If your needs are 70%, then hey, adjust the rule. Maybe your reality right now is 70-15-15. The core lesson is simply to have a structured plan in place. It's not about blindly following a 20-year-old percentage rule if it literally does not fit your zip code.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds into finding your perfect budget.
If the classic 50-30-20 rule feels like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, it is time to find a strategy that adapts to your specific situation and, honestly, the way your brain works. Here are 4 fantastic alternatives highlighted by the financial platform Spend.io. I actually highly recommend grabbing a screenshot of this list. First up, the 70-20-10 rule. This simply combines your needs and wants into one giant 70% bucket, which is perfect for high-cost areas where rent is just eating your budget. Second is zero-based budgeting. This means you assign every single dollar a specific job before the month even starts, giving you total, absolute control. Third, we have pay yourself first. You just automate your 20% savings the very day you get paid, and then you spend the rest without obsessively tracking categories. And finally, the envelope method. This uses physical or digital cash limits for specific categories, which is absolutely brilliant if you are a chronic overspender.
These options really illustrate the 2 extremes of personal finance. On the left side, you've got zero-based budgeting. It requires high detail, maybe 30 to 60 minutes a week of your time, but it gives you maximum control and visibility. It's especially great if your income fluctuates from month to month. But then on the right side, you've got pay yourself first, which is also known as the 80-20 rule. This requires almost zero cognitive load because it relies entirely on automation. You set up a bank transfer once and you are literally done. The point here is to prove that there isn't just one single right way to budget. There is a method out there for every single personality type.
Which brings us to our final and probably most crucial point of this whole explainer. I want you to ask yourself, is your budget running your life, or are you running your budget? At the end of the day, the best budget is simply the one you actually stick to. A super strict zero-based budget that you abandon in 30 days is basically useless compared to a loose pay-yourself-first system that you stick with for 5 years. Remember, any structure is far better than having no structure at all. I really hope this explainer has left you eager to pull up your own bank statements, figure out your unique percentages, and take real control of your financial future. Thanks so much for watching, and happy budgeting!